Hello, my name is John Brink. You're watching A History of the BC Forest Industry. Hi, thank you for joining us today. Our guest today is a very, very special guest. That is the mayor of Vanderhoof, Mr. Gerry Thiessen. And I'm excited about that because Vanderhoof is one of the central areas for the forest industry. And so with that, we'll ask you to join us, Gerry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to sit and chat with you this morning.
Great. And one of the first things, Gerry, that comes to mind somewhat, because it is so much all part of our lives these days, is, COVID-19. How has it affected your region in Vanderhoof?
Well, certainly, I think the word unprecedented has been used so much, but it's hard to find another word that describes what we're going through. We've just never gone through something like this before. And so what you find is that there's times that you're making decisions and you go like, oh, this seems so right, only to a week later go like something new has come up. And so we're very fortunate because we're a rural area. And so the healthcare has been very good here. We have a very good hospital. We had lots of access to physicians and healthcare here, so that worked out real well. But and also, our sawmills have kept on going. Some took a short break and things like that. But it's been a trying time. It's certainly the last 2 months. You spend a lot of time trying to understand what the impacts of this that you've never gone through before.
Yes, for sure. And hopefully things will start easing a little bit. It appears that way in the province, and compared to other areas, we fortunate by comparison. Are you from British Columbia originally, or?
Yes, I was actually pretty fortunate. My parents actually came, from the prairies here. They were quite young. There was, you can tell from my last name, I come from a Mennonite family, and so a lot of Mennonite people in 1942 came from Saskatchewan. They were tired of the Dust Bowl, and so the government was trying to settle the CNR Railway. And so my family and about 40 other families, one of them was the Martins family, which started Plateau Mills here in Vanderhoof, were another family. So they came here. My mother as well, from a Mennonite background, but she became a school teacher and saw an advertisement by the superintendent of the day, Ray Williston, and she came and she taught in a very rural school about 20 miles out of Vanderhoof, and she came here in the late 40s, and so I was born here in Vanderhoof and lived here basically my whole life, other than about a 9-year period where I lived in Prince Rupert and a short period in Victoria.
Right. So you have a long, deep-rooted family history in Vanderhoof, in the region then, right? So they came in, you said, the early 40s to the Vanderhoof area?
Yeah.
And they then
they came
a farm, or what did they do?
They came to farm. Naturally, we all want to farm and find out that farming has always been consistent, but you really need something else. And so they started in the sawmill business. And so my father and his brothers, they had a small sawmill just north of Vanderhoof in the Blue Mountain area, together with my grandfather. And then I remember as a very young person, my father working for Bill Martins, who again had a small sawmill up in that area. And so we were sawmill families. Many of us lived in small camps surrounding a mill, and they kind of logged patchwork by patchwork as they went around to good patches of timber in those days.
So that was in the 1940s, 50s, right? And that,
Yeah.
so, and then, what happened with your background, when you stayed in Vanderhoof, you got your original schooling, I presume, in Vanderhoof as well.
Yes, I graduated from Nechaka Valley Secondary in '71, and and I had been working. I started out as a 16-year-old. I found a job. Actually, I had an uncle. In those days, they dry pile lumber,
Yeah.
and so my uncle was he had an epileptic problem, and so he talked to me and said, "Hey, if you came to work with me, we could make a pile of money." And so I just went to work at the sawmill until one day, about 2 days or 3 days into it, the boss showed up and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm working here." And he said, "No, you haven't applied for a job." So I did apply for a job, and they put me on a kind of a green chain, a resaw green chain, as a 16-year-old, and I'm not a very big person. So that was a real introduction to work. And then I worked that winter as a 16-year-old in a grocery store here in Vanderhoof. Did that, and then, like I say, as soon as I graduated, the day I graduated, a gentleman showed up at the school when I wrote my Math 12, and went back to the bush, working in a small sawmill in rural Vanderhoof, and piling lumber, and then working on a cutoff saw. Learned how to do that, and spent 1 year working in kind of, not so much in the sawmill, but mostly logging, a skidder operator. I worked as a skidder operator for that year of '71, '72.
Right. That was during the times that, just for our public that is viewing this, is that those were the days, the 40s, 50s, where in Prince George and the same in Vanderhoof, but around the Prince George area, where the portable sawmills, usually owned by entrepreneurial individuals, were small, and they would move to the timber, get a timber area to log and move the portable sawmills down there, and then cut the wood there and then send it into town to be planed through the planers. And to put some of that into perspective, around the Prince George area, we had up to 500 sawmills in the 1950s, and probably proportionally, the same in the Vanderhoof area. There were little portable sawmills all over. Now,
very, very much so, and they produced one pile of economic value. A lot of people worked at them, and they were very labor intensive, and so it was very good.
Yeah. Now, and then, somehow you got involved in the grocery area and worked for the grocery store, and then an opportunity present itself in Prince Rupert that makes you move to Prince Rupert?
Yes. The winter of, or spring, I guess, of '72, I moved to Prince Rupert, worked in the grocery business, started out with a co-op store, then on to Safeway, then kind of had an opportunity to be a distributor, owner operator of a small bread truck down in Victoria, and did that for '77. And then something I always wanted to do was be in business. And I had actually taken my real estate course. And in the fall of '77, while I was still in Victoria, somebody that knew me in Prince Rupert called me and said, "Look, please come back to Prince Rupert. We'll pay you to come back and be a real estate salesman here in Prince Rupert." So I went back to Prince Rupert and had 3 financially very successful years, but I had a young family, and you have to have everything fit together. And so I had gotten married, had 4 young children very early, and so in the fall of 1980, we then decided to move back to Vanderhoof and bought a small farm and did that.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. So you had 2 boys, 2 girls, or
Two
you know,
boys and 2 girls. Yeah.
and they were all born in Prince Rupert.
Yes. Yeah. The oldest boy wasn't. He was my wife. But they were all born right at that same time, and so I met my wife in 1973, and we met on a Greyhound bus. I was coming back to Vanderhoof, and there had been a snowslide between Terrace and Prince Rupert, and wasn't able to drive my car, and so she was taking a bus from Burns Lake, where she was, and going to Prince George to CNC to take a course and to take her schooling there, and so that's how we met, and the rest is history, as they say.
And how many years ago?
40 this August. It will be our 47th wedding anniversary, and so yeah, it's been good, and a lot of variety in our life.
So the Charolais cattle, just for the benefit of our audience, what is unique about the name Charolais cattle?
Well, they were a French breed up till the early 60s. Most breeds in Canada were your British breeds, which were Herefords, Shorthorns, Angus, those kind of breeds. And so then in the early 60s, all of a sudden, a few farmers went to France, saw different breeds. One of them was a Simmental, Gelbvieh, but one of them was a Charolais, and they became very popular. And they're a totally solid white animal. So anyways, they were something that the cattle farmers, the beef farmers in the area were looking for. And so our main market was selling bulls to ranches from Smithers to Williams Lake, kind of in that area, and certainly the Prince George area.
Right. So then at some point you sold the farm and you focused on the real estate.
No, actually, I stayed with the farming right through till 2012. I sold the farm. We always did the two together. We sold real estate as well as had the farm, raise the purebred animals, and it was a great combination. It was good for our family, and it was a really good family lifestyle.
In a good setting to grow up a family, right?
It was very busy. Our children were all in 4-H. We did the fair circuit. We always did the Prince George exhibition, the Vanderhoof Fall Fair, and then we headed off to Smithers and did those fairs. And so the thing is, it was a real team building time, and certainly a lot of good memories.
Yeah, and for the kids, it teaches them to take care of animals. It teaches them the routines that go with it, and the discipline that goes with it, and the rewards that go with it as well, right?
Very much, and they built their sense of friends, but the farm lifestyle was very good to us. It gave our whole family an opportunity to be together as a unit when the end of the day came.
Now then, when you became involved in the real estate and we kind of survived collectively the downturns in the early 80s, your real estate became more successful, but at the same time, you became more involved in the organizations around the real estate, the Northern Interior Real Estate Board and the Provincial Board. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the 80s were tough. They were really tough. You didn't know how you're going to make it with those interest rates, but we made it through. And my wife also she worked at the health department here, and so that kind of she worked part-time there. But those were tough years. And then in about 92, an opportunity came to be a director of the BC Northern Real Estate Board. And then a year or two later, I was asked to be the vice president, and then I was the president in 95. And that was a great opportunity. And then at that time, I went on the next year as a director for the British Columbia Real Estate Board. And a year later, I was asked if I would consider the vice presidency, and did that. And then I was just going to come back and sell real estate and farm, and but the opportunity came, a lot of encouragement from across Canada to run nationally as a director, and so I did, and that's the largest trade association in Canada. It's just over 100,000 real estate salesmen in Canada right now.
Wow.
And so in 2003, I ran, which was seen as a real, it hadn't been done in the 60 years. I was told that they only took presidents from Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver. And so I said, well, that's fine. I'm going to run. And so I ran for vice president, and I was the president of the Canadian Real Estate Association in 2005. And it was a great opportunity. My wife and I traveled all of Canada, United States, and lots of Europe as well.
And for how long were you the international? Was it for a 2-year term or?
No, it was a 1-year term. You were on the executive for 4 years. And so, in that 4 or 5 year period, I probably flew to the offices in Ottawa. And so I flew there and probably every other week on average, and really had an opportunity to understand what advocacy was, how to tell your story to government, to hear what your issues were and what your concerns were, and how you could address them. And so I had a great chance to meet with ministers, premiers, prime ministers, and even in Washington, D.C., met with the Secretary of HUD on a couple of occasions, and worked from there.
So it gave you an opportunity to really skill your not only your presentation skills, but also your listening skills and interacting on a major scale like that. Those are large organizations that are very, very closely structured and require discipline to be effective in them, right?
It was very much that. It forced you to listen. It forced you to develop relationships. And I think one of the things that I've learned the most is the relationships that I've been able to build in my career, in my time in leadership, are really what's been my success. People have been able to give me good thought process, and also how to be able to present where we want to go, and so anyways, it was a great chance for me, and so that all ended, I think, in 2007 was about this time of the year, 2007.
And when did the International Housing Coalition engagement end?
Yeah, that was a great part. There was a group from Washington, D.C. They had the vice president of Habitat for Humanity out of Atlanta, Georgia. They had a U.S. state senator, the speaker of their house, a former speaker of their house, 2 people from the World Bank. And so they decided that they wanted to make this small group international. And they called to Ottawa and they said, well, we have a guy that always talks about affordable housing. And so I was on that board from the initiation in 2005, 6, I guess it was 6, till 2010, just after I became mayor of Vanderhoof.
Right. So now what happened is that, so after all of that, you then moved into local politics. And you started, the election was in 2010?
2008.
2008. And
fall of 2008, yeah.
Yeah, and you put your name up, for not just to sit on council, but you want right for the top job.
Yeah, I guess I have lived here all my life, and certainly I wanted to see the town possibly move in a bit of a change. We were very successful. We had very reasonable taxes. We had paid off our debts. But to me, I really sensed that the world was going to go through a change, and economically, but also there was a desire for all those other added things, whether it was recreation, environmental stewardship, those kind of things. And so I sensed that from my life that I had, that I would be able to balance those two. How do we have a good, strong economy? How do we take care of our financial position, our debt, make sure that we don't carry any debt, and then as well have those other avenues of environmental stewardship, recreation, and those kind of things.
So a policy of physical responsibility and growth and healthy companies. Now,
Yeah.
The timing that you chose could not have possibly been worse, because now what had happened in 2000, the late 90s actually, the region where you were in, it was just in the center of it, because all of a sudden the pine beetles started to evolve in Tweedsmuir Park and expanded rapidly from there on in through your region and into the central British Columbia, and with the results that it nearly destroyed 75% of all the pine beetle in the interior. And then, and then the industry, for all intents and purposes, was underwater. And, that combined with the coming out of the high interest rate. So there were a lot of challenges in the industry, and then the concerns about the pine beetle, and concerns already what will happen to the industry. That's just when you started, right?
Yeah, it was those early days of 2000, end of 2008, 2009. Yeah, they were really tough. I remember the former mayor saying to me, "You have no idea what you got yourself in." And I knew I didn't, but I didn't know it was going to be that hard. It really forced me to understand what it would take to build good relationships. And certainly, over those times, we've worked really hard at building, especially with First Nations. We knew if we were going to get timber to our producers, they would have to have good, strong relationships with First Nations.
Yeah. Now, one of the things also that happened is that, the Minister of Forest was planning to move the forest office, district office, out of Vanderhoof. And that was one of the first ones where you had to put your skills to work in convincing everybody, no, this is the center and I need to maintain that office in that region.
Yeah, we found out in 2009, when there was a time of consolidation, that they were going to make Vanderhoof a sub-office. And so anyways, worked very hard. Fortunately, I had some senior people that lived in our community and had been assistant deputy ministers. And so we went and talked to the minister of the day, Mr. Bell, and talked to him and said, look, can we find out why you made this decision? And then can we discuss it going forward? And anyways, we were at that time able to present our case and have kept our district office here and kept decision making here. And we have seen that good responsive decision making by government really allows industry to keep on operating even in tough times. And so that's been kind of the area that we've really worked hard on.
Now, looking forward, Gerry, again, we are in transition. We see mills curtailed because of market and conditions, but also we've seen substantial closures of mills that will not open again, where because of the pine beetle, because of fires, and the combination of all of it, the annual allowable cut in the interior of the province has gone down to from a high of 80 million cubic meters annually to at the highs to about half that. And that has meant a major change. At the same time, that I believe, and I'm sure you do, and so do many other people, with all the things that have gone on, that there is a future in the forest industry, that we have to do a number of things and recognize that as we go forward, it's still one of the best areas in the world to grow fiber. And, but it will change from where it was. It will be a new and different industry employing different skill sets. We have to make new products for new markets and engage technology, robotics, and all of those things in that process. And in order to do that, we have to invest in infrastructure for training. And as you know, that we, in particular, the College of Caledonia has done a very, very good job in the region. I know they are opening another part of their college in Vanderhoof. I just want to talk about that a little bit as well. But we must be looking, we have to go even beyond that in terms of, we have worked with the college, and there is a drive at foot right now to say we need to create a center of excellence that prepares us what follows the downturn and allows us to, be better stewards, grow more fiber per hectare, develop skill sets, develop products for new markets, and all of those things. You agree?
Very much so. And so to us is there's two things that have to happen to have a successful community. And one is to have not only good jobs and investment, and your company has been very much a part of our community here and has stayed there, but you also have to have people that are qualified for the jobs. And the college opportunity is where it's at, to get those tradespeople, get those people that can get out there and get those jobs. And so thank you for your initiative that you've done at the college, but also for your investment in the community, and then into making sure that we have the right product there. And many of those remanufacturing mills certainly are going to have a strong future, I believe, in how we become innovative and understanding of where we want to go in the future.
Yeah, and then in particular, with the changing in terms of the stakeholders like First Nations will be much, much more actively involved in the industry and in owning and controlling timber. So do the other communities, like Vanderhoof and other communities will be much more actively involved in what the industry will look like. And that creates huge opportunities in terms of working with industry, working with organizations like the Council of Forest Industry and the major producers, as well as the medium-sized and secondary manufacturers.
You're so right. And certainly the courts have stated very clearly the ownership of much of our resources. And so a relationship with First Nations is absolutely imperative, and you're not going to get anywhere with that. I think also it's going to require more local input into any of the licensing, any of the harvesting methods, and also where the product goes and how it's manufactured. And so I see the next 10 to 20 years very exciting in the forest industry, which will give a lot of innovation. It won't be just very much a treadmill kind of manufacturing. It's going to be innovative. It's going to be exciting, and so looking forward to it. And so just want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you to our guest, Mayor Gerry Thiessen of Vanderhoof, and to the rest of the viewers. We'll see you next week.